Hold up a 1 for the first dish or a 2 for the second dish. 3, 2, 1. Welcome back to Chef vs. Fans. This is the Yuzu Battle. This month's battle is the Battle of the Yuzu, and as you guys have asked, I'm not letting you know which dish belongs to who. Let me know in the comments down below who you think belongs to who. The judges aren't going to know, so let's jump into this battle. So now the first recipe we are working with is the Yuzu Cheesecake with the raspberry bomb. This is going to be super straightforward to put together, but it does have quite a few components, so we're going to have to work through this in stages. And with any cheesecake, I always like to start with the crust first. So for the crust, we need 200 grams worth of almonds. These are whole roasted almonds. Hopefully, yeah, I think that'll fit, maybe. To this, we need 40 grams worth of brown sugar, which is definitely clumped up, but it'll be okay. God, I already made a mess. We just started. And to bring it together, we need about 20 to 30 grams worth of butter, depending on how many almonds you use, how much sugar you want, but we're just gonna melt this for like 10 seconds. Okay, maybe like 20 seconds. That's not melted at all. Yeah, that's kind of what you want your butter to look like, you know, not clumpy boy. Go ahead and add your butter directly to your almonds and your sugar, and then we're just gonna pulse this, not until it's like a butter, but so that way, you know, maybe there's some small chunks in it, you know, a little chunky monkey in there, which is a delicious Ben & Jerry's ice cream, and I wish I could have ice cream. I think I broke it. Now I don't actually want this to be like a paste, because if it's a paste, it's gonna be almond butter, and we don't want almond butter. Need it a little more than that. I think this will be okay, but it also needs a touch of salt, because you don't want all of that just sweetness coming through. So we're gonna hit this with a pinch of salt, a little savory component, always, always, always. Very nice. This doesn't look like it may come together, so I'll show you guys a little test I like to do with crusts to see how it can come together. But what I like to do for crust, you can see it does look really nice. But if you can grab some of it, if you can squish it together in your hand and it doesn't completely fall apart, you see how it's kind of like a chunk of almond at this point. It almost looks like an almond roca. It should hold up. This still feels like I could add some more butter, so I'm gonna throw another like 10 grams, not much. Now with our additional melted butter, I'm hoping that this holds it together a bit better, and you can keep adjusting if you're doing something like this, or you could adjust it with coconut oil if you really want to. You can add, I guess, almost any fat really with a crust like this, so this way it holds it together. And we're trying to make sure it's slightly saturated. This is smart. This is an idea. Make sure that it is fully combined, so all of that butter is mixing in properly with the almonds. This is almost looking like a complete like graham cracker crust to me. Grab a nice handful. Oh, there it is. That's the ticket. Look at this clumpy boy. See that? That's the crust that you want when you're working with any kind of an almond crust. That's how much butter you need to make sure you get this, and then you could still break it apart, but now it won't really fall apart, hopefully, in our actual crust for our cheesecake. Now the other thing to do before you actually pop this into your molds is give it a taste. Make sure it's salty enough, sweet enough. Perfect. Not overly sweet, not overly salty. They're gonna go in these. They're beautiful and cute. I like cute things. Am I not allowed to like cute things? They're Teflon coated. Doesn't mean they're fully non-stick, trust me. So I'm gonna actually spray these quite generously, and then we're gonna wipe them out. I like to wipe these out with just a small thing of paper towel, making sure that, again, there isn't too much grease in there, but the whole thing does need to be greased, so this way nothing really sticks. Because if you go to demold these and everything sticks, it's gonna be a disaster, and that's kind of what we want to avoid with any kind of a cheesecake. Now, when we think about this cheesecake, we have to think about the layers, right? We wanna look at like a small crust layer, then your cheesecake layer, then there's actually a coconut cream layer that we have to do later. So I'm going to place just a few small spoons of this initially and kind of get a feel for how much crust is. A couple of spoonfuls, and this looks like it's not going to be enough just looking at it. And what I like to do is really just press it down with my thumb, making sure it's as even as possible. Go gently first, so this way you get a nice even layer. Once you have that even layer on your cheesecake, just looking at it, yeah, that's not gonna be enough. Maybe one more spoon each. Now another thing I like to do is use some parchment paper. This helps press down without it sticking to your finger, because that can happen very easily. And what you can also do is grab a glass or something with a flat bottom and press the cheesecake crust down, which is what I'm going to do next once I have this kind of in place. Just so this way it's super even, you know, and you don't have like this weird thick areas of your crust. I also, for me personally, I don't like my crust to creep up on the edges, so I actually like to press the edges down. Solid, my friends, look at it. It's holding its shape. It's pretty, can it? Yes, excellent. Oh, I'm super excited already. That's good. Let's do the other two, and then we'll round back when we need to put these away. Now we have all 3 of these ready to go, but I still want to tamp them down just a bit so that way they're super even. We're gonna use that glass trick for that. Grab your parchment, place it in here, and then just gently press down, trying to make sure that all the edges are even. Make sure you don't press down too hard to where you break your glass. That would be very not fun for you and me. So these look ready to go. I'm gonna pop these on a small sheet tray. We're gonna throw them in the fridge, maybe 15 minutes, 20 minutes, however long it takes you to make the batter. So just all of that. Give it at least like 5 minutes, you know? Let the boys rest. I gotta go to the other fridge. Clear your workspace, you animal. Now the cheesecake portion is super simple. We only need, what, 4 ingredients plus vanilla. Don't forget the vanilla and the salt. We're gonna need some cream cheese, a bit of sugar, sour cream, a couple of eggs. Oh, and then of course we need the yuzu, because this is the yuzu battle. Now we have everything. We had to grab the yuzu juice, which is pretty paramount to this, and some vanilla. And then we have a pinch of salt back there that we're gonna use. But first, grab a stand mixer. You can do this in a bowl as well, like just with a regular hand mixer. It's not a big deal. I'm just using this because this is all I have. Now, once you can figure out how to open up the cream cheese, we're using equal parts cream cheese and sour cream. So this is 230 grams worth of cream cheese. And then we have 230 grams worth of sour cream. But first, what we wanna do is take your cream cheese, that's a nice little block right there, and we're gonna cream the cream cheese with the sugar. This process is very important to this step because you don't want any chunky bits of cream cheese. Once you add the sour cream, it's actually gonna be very difficult to start incorporating the cream cheese properly. So first, bring this to a low speed, let the cream cheese start getting, you know, a little soft because this has been sitting for around 2 hours, but it's not quite room temp yet, and we need this to be room temp while we mix everything else. This has only been going for about a minute because again, I had it at room temp. Just give it a good scrape. You want to make sure that this is nice and soft. You're not trying to like get it super fluffy, but just soft enough to where it's kind of malleable in a way. Make sure it's all scraped off the bottom because it likes to hang out there. Now we're going to crank this back on and then slowly start adding our sugar while it's mixing. This is going to start creaming together the cream cheese and the sugar. Want to make sure that this is incorporated before we add in anything else. This is what it should start to look like. You can see how nice and creamy it's getting, even with the sugar added to it. We still want to make sure that we end up scraping this bowl though. So I'm gonna give this another scrape just to see what it looks like. Oh yes. Okay, this is looking good. So now it feels pretty soft, which is really nice. Look at how the texture has changed, right? You can see when I do this, it's nice and soft. Okay, that's what you're looking for. Let's go with our sour cream and our yuzu and our vanilla and our salt, and then the eggs go in last. So first goes sour cream. You can just put this all in at once. It doesn't have to be on while you do this portion of it. I'm using yuzu juice because yuzu powder is very difficult to find. Fresh yuzu citrus is also incredibly difficult to find in the States. I've only found fresh yuzu like twice. So it's very difficult to find, but we're gonna use the yuzu juice, which is readily available. You can pick this up pretty much anywhere. Get your questionable scale, and we're gonna measure out 40 grams worth of yuzu juice. That's so much yuzu juice. I feel like 40 is gonna be much. We're gonna start with 30. We're gonna blend it. We're gonna taste it. If it needs more, we'll add more. We can always add, but we can't subtract. We'll do 1 cap full of vanilla, which is usually like a gram. You don't always need too much vanilla, but it is a nice little flavor. Just a touch of salt, just a nice little pinch, you know? Can you see what I'm holding without me spilling it? Yeah, that's a pinch. Now, while this is spinning, I'm gonna slowly start pouring in the yuzu, because if I were to throw it all in at once, it'd probably just splash up everywhere, and I don't wanna deal with that. Now we're gonna let this go on like a low speed just for about a minute. Again, there's no flour in this cheesecake recipe, so we're not exactly trying to develop gluten at all. You can see how wet it's starting to look, and that's kind of what you're looking for. It's nice and creamy and delicious, but we still have to scrape this down. Give this a scrape. Make sure the bottom is scraped too, again, because it likes to hang out there. Okay, this is looking beautiful, nice and velvety. Now we're gonna add our eggs, and the way I like to add my eggs for a cheesecake recipe like this is crack the eggs in a bowl first, and then start putting them in, because we're only gonna do 1 at a time, right? Oh, what a fail. Thank you. Put you in there. The egg white's not gonna come, but never fear, because I always have egg whites for breakfast. I'm just gonna add a little small splash of egg whites just to compensate for the one that's sitting on the cutting board right now. Bring this to a low speed and then start dropping in the eggs just 1 at a time. It's only 2 eggs. This process doesn't take forever, but you wanna make sure that each yolk is fully incorporated before you add in the second one. So this is what it looks like. You can see the beautiful yolky color in there right now. You wanna make sure that all of that is more or less kind of blended in with everything else before you add the second one. I'm gonna crank it just a bit, so this way it goes a little faster. In between each egg, I like to make sure I just scrape. Now we can add that second egg. We'll just let that blend together, and that's pretty much the batter, guys. But again, we're gonna taste this, taste it for salt, taste it for sugar, taste it primarily for yuzu to see if we need to add any more yuzu juice to this. Let's see what this tastes like. You can see how creamy the batter is. Yeah, nice and smooth. Yeah, the yuzu comes through really nicely. Oh yeah, oh. Oh, it puckers the mouth. Oh, ooh. Oh, that gets me excited. Oh my God, I'm on a diet. Don't drink this batter. Now you can see, look at the batter now. Look at how beautiful, creamy and velvety this is. If this is cooked properly, this batter should set kind of closer to a custard than a cheesecake. So what I'm gonna do is I'm actually, because it is fairly loose, I'm gonna pop this in the fridge for about an hour, and then we'll come back to it and pour it into the molds, and then we'll bake everything while I clean up this mess. Now the next thing we need to make is our raspberry bomb, or like raspberry jam thing that was on the recipe, and that is actually going to be stuffed with yuzu curd. This is 200 grams worth of raspberries. Just make sure that they're rinsed, huh? Just make sure that they're clean. 200 grams worth of raspberry and 50 grams worth of sugar directly onto the raspberries, and then we're gonna let this sit for just about 15 minutes. 53, okay, that's fine. Now give this a quick stir. So you can see it kind of looks like raspberries covered in snow. It's beautiful. So we're gonna let this sit for like 10 or 15 minutes, and then we're gonna cook it down and then finish it. Did you know that cold brew is significantly cheaper when you brew it at home? Now it's been about 10-15 minutes on our raspberries and our sugar, and these we're gonna add to a smaller, I guess like this is like the most medium, not, this is way too big of a pot. I'll take the world's cutest sauce pot. I thought that the world's cutest sauce pot would be too big, but this is like more than likely perfect. Okay, that's good. And then also to make sure I get the rest of that sugar out of there, I'm just gonna hit this with just a touch of water, just a very, very small amount just to help it. Now we're gonna bring this over to the stove and cook it down just a smidge, you know, for like 45 minutes to an hour. So you do wanna keep this low. Make sure that it is slow and low so you don't end up burning any of that sugar. We wanna cook this down until it's basically a syrupy paste. Then we're gonna strain it to remove all of the seeds, and then we're gonna add our agar to thicken it. I almost forgot, we're also adding about 30 to 40 milliliters worth of water, just to help it. So now while the raspberry jam thing is working, we can start filling out our cheesecakes and pop them into the oven, because they are gonna need at least an hour to an hour and a half of time, so that way they can cook properly in the water bath. Now you can see also like the crusts have cooled down. They're super nice on the inside. These are ready to go. It does still feel like there's grease on here, so I don't think we're gonna need to add any additional grease. We are gonna measure out how much batter we have, so this way we get them as even as possible. I'm hoping for 600 grams. Pretty close, pretty close. Ooh, 580. Oh, we definitely have 600. We're good. Really cheap Home Depot lights. I would appreciate it if you stopped flickering. Oh, it's so pretty. Ooh, this is gonna be a thick boy though. You know what, I think I'm just gonna go with, less than 200. Go with 180. Yeah, 180 looks like it's gonna be the magic number. Oh, way too much. Abort the mission. There we go, okay. You can see how beautiful this looks right now. And you can, I don't want to tilt it because I don't want the cheesecake to be weird when it cooks, but you can see where the line is of the cheesecake. Yeah, that's kind of what you're looking for. So if you are doing this, please wrap them in aluminum foil before you fill them to make your life easier, but I got a little carried away and really wanted to pour that cheesecake, so yeah, this is me. So the reason for the aluminum foil is we don't want any water to get into that springform pan. So make sure that the aluminum foil is nice and tight, that the water doesn't go up above the aluminum foil, obviously. I almost want to do a second layer of foil, but I think this will be okay. I have a small, like, deep set roasting pan. I'm gonna pop these in here. Okay, cool, nice and snug, Good. Everything looks like it's gonna be okay. And I say that now and there's gonna be a disaster later, watch. So now before we pop these in the oven, we wanna make sure that we put this in the oven first and then like pull the rack out and then pour the water in. Otherwise you're gonna be moving hot water around. It's not fun for anyone. So the oven is set to 300 degrees Fahrenheit. I have it super slow and low. I don't actually want this to cook too quickly. Otherwise you have a chance of cracking the cheesecake. You're basically making an oven baked custard. I have some hot water here, making sure that it doesn't come up again too high onto those cheesecakes. We want it to go maybe like halfway. This is gonna give you a really nice even bake. You can see kind of where the water line comes up. It's right about, oh God, I just touched hot water. You can see where it comes up. That's basically what you're looking for. Now, we're gonna pop these in, leave them undisturbed for at least 1 hour because they're smaller. So we're gonna set a timer for 45 minutes and just let them go. Don't touch them, leave them alone, let them be, don't open the oven, it'll be okay. Now the cheesecake is in, our raspberries working. We're actually gonna strain it right now so this way we can start that gelling process. This is gonna go pretty quickly. You can see this is the consistency and the texture that I'm looking for. It's super wet, right? So it's not really like a jam or a jelly yet because we're gonna add agar to it, so we don't need to make this too thick. It's basically like raspberry juice at this point, which could be amazing and very expensive. I'm gonna strain this guy right into another container. Oh God, oh God. Okay, look at that. We were getting our raspberry juice all filtered. Make sure you do kind of get as much as you can out of this because raspberries are not cheap, you know? So you wanna make sure you get all that good out of there. Strain all those seeds. Nobody wants the seeds. Get stuck in your teeth. Once you've strained out pretty much all of it, you're gonna have a bunch of pulp and seeds left, which is what we don't want, so we're just gonna toss these. This is all that we're left with. See that? Out of all that raspberry that we just did, that's all we're left with, but that's all we want. And we're gonna pop this back into our, oh, it looks so beautiful. Oh, it's delicious. I'm gonna steep some mint into this. Yeah, we're gonna just do a couple of leaves, just pop it right in there. Now we're gonna bring this back over to the stove, bring this up to a simmer. As soon as it comes to a simmer, remove the mint, and then we're gonna add the agar. Now once this has come to that simmer, I'm gonna pull this mint. I don't wanna cook it too long. Remove the mint, making sure you get raspberry juice everywhere. Now this is when we're going to add in a half gram of agar. It is super strong, so we're not gonna put too much in there. And the reason why I'm doing agar is because agar actually sets up a bit more firm than gelatin. So you can use either one, but I like using agar for this application because it's going to be essentially a mold versus like a gelatin. Now we're gonna bring this back up to a full simmer. Now after about 3-4 minutes, I ended up going closer to the 4-minute mark. Your agar should be completely dissolved. So agar needs heat to activate, right? Just similar to like a cornstarch slurry. You can't just add it in there and hope for the best. You do have to heat it to activate it. I also, to make the molds, I'm gonna be using these sphere molds that I've used in the past for reverse spherification. This is what's going to give us that kind of, that bomb, that raspberry bomb. So we're only gonna need a small amount in each one. We do wanna fill it. We're gonna fill them entirely though, because then we're gonna hollow out a small portion of them to fill it with our yuzu curd, which I think is gonna be phenomenal. It's gonna be a nice little surprise for the judges. Okay, we got 7 half spheres. Beautiful, beautiful. Hopefully those set. Now, because these are still like super hot, super wet, they're hot and wet. We're gonna let these sit for around 10 minutes at room temperature before we throw them in the refrigerator to cool down completely. Agar typically needs 20 to 30 minutes to fully set depending on the size, but I'm just gonna let these go overnight and then we're gonna fill these with the yuzu curd later. Now, the second component we need for these raspberry bombs is going to be this yuzu lemon curd. Now again, yuzu citrus, like whole citrus, is really hard to find. So instead I'm using 2 zested lemons to help kind of amp up that flavor, along with some of our yuzu juice to complement it. Now what we need to do is actually take 50 grams worth of granulated sugar, add this to our 2 zested lemons, I guess you could do it with limes, that might be delicious too. We're gonna give this a quick stir, just combine those together, and we're gonna let this sit for maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, just so this way it kind of, the sugar saturates all of that zest, you know, and kind of plays really nicely together. This is what it starts to look like, you know? Beautiful, zested, sugary goodness. In addition, we're gonna be using some eggs for this. I'm using 2 egg yolks and 1 whole egg, so just 3 guys in there, you know, easy peasy. And then we're gonna give this a quick whisk. We're only gonna need the world's smallest, cutest pan, and we're gonna take our eggs, add this into here. We're going all in right away. Make sure you get all that scraped out, because it is such a small amount, every little bit counts in here. To this, we are going to add 30 milliliters worth of yuzu juice, which is significant. Again, this bottle is like 10 bucks. Doesn't really get you very far. Well, 30, okay, 34, that's fine. You can't go back in. Add 34 grams of yuzu juice into this. So it's been about 5 minutes, and you can see, look at the difference in the zest now, right? It looks completely different. It's completely saturated now, which is what you're looking for. So we're gonna take this, we're gonna add it to our eggs and our yuzu, and add that straight to that. This is gonna be a super quick curd. Actually, do I want to add the butter right now? No, I'm going to add the butter to kind of cool it down. So we'll just bring this over to the stove. And because it's basically eggs, sugar, yuzu juice, and zest, you do want to pay attention to this because you don't want to end up with scrambled eggs. So I have the heat really, really low. Going to make sure I'm constantly stirring this. So this is kind of unfortunate timing, but we were making the curd and the cheesecakes went off. I should have been paying attention more to that timer. So I just turned off the curd for a second while we check the cheesecakes, because it's super important that we don't overcook these. Let's take a look at, ooh, these are looking really nice. So you can see, this is what we're looking for. There's a slight jiggle to them. We're gonna leave this in the water bath, but outside of the oven for another half an hour. We're just gonna let those rest. If you remove them and shock them with cold air too quickly, you have a chance of collapsing them. So we're just gonna let these sit in this water bath for another half hour, 45 minutes. Doesn't really too matter on that part, but we're just gonna let them sit just so they like come down slowly. Don't shock your cheesecakes. That's how you crack them. So I've been cooking this curd for just about 3 or 4 minutes. You can see it's starting to thicken up. What I want to do now is I'm going to add my butter to this. It's going to help kind of start bringing it together, and we're just going to add all of it at once. And we're going to melt the butter into here. It should carry over. It should carry over. So we'll see what the thickness is of this. With egg things like this, it's really easy to start overcooking them once they start getting to the coagulation point. Oh God, coagulation point. This is looking really, really beautiful now. We're gonna turn off the heat. We're gonna bring this out to another container and just let it cool down. This is what my curd is starting to look like. Yeah, you see that? Look at that texture. Okay, this is looking really nice. I almost want to puree it just so it's completely smooth, but then it's not really like a true curd at that point. You know what? I'm gonna put this on an ice bath just to make sure it cools down completely and very quickly. Keep a spoon inside of it just to stir it up every few minutes. Now my water is no longer really that hot just by touching it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna remove my cheesecakes from the water just to make sure there's no chance of like cracking in the aluminum. And look at how gorgeous this is. I'm gonna show you guys this up close. It looks like we did get some water in some of them, but I feel like it's gonna be okay. Let's see what the other ones look like. See, there's always a chance you'll get some water. Yeah, there's a touch in this one, but it doesn't look like it came up too high. I'm hoping it wasn't too bad. So we'll only find out when we unmold them and just see what it looks like. It had to happen during a competition. But other than that, these are gorgeous. Look at it, beautiful. You can already see it starting to separate, but it's still a little warm. So we're gonna pop these onto this sheet tray and we're gonna throw this into the refrigerator. After resting for an additional 45 minutes at room temperature, after removing them from the water, this is really gonna help them out. So we're gonna let this hang out for another 45 minutes, then go in the fridge overnight, lightly covered with plastic, not fully covered, otherwise it can still leach heat. And if it leaches heat, the condensation will fall to the top. Cheesecakes are very temperamental. The last thing I wanna do is add a coconut panna cotta layer to the top of those cheesecakes. So it should be super simple. All we really need to do is bloom some gelatin right over here. We're gonna do 5 grams of gelatin with about 60 mils worth of water. Bloom that first, and then we're gonna just heat up some coconut cream with some sugar and a touch of vanilla, put it together, boom, panna cotta. We're gonna use the questionable scale to make sure it's super accurate. 60 grams worth of water, just about. That's close enough. 61.7. We'll go with 61.7. Now, I also need 5 grams worth of gelatin, but I'm not gonna bloom it in here. I wanna bloom it into a bowl. Make sure that you use a bowl that's gonna be big enough to add the cream in later, so keep that in mind. So I want 5 grams worth of gelatin. There we go, 5 grams. So it looks like there's a little bit in here left. I'm just gonna pop it in here. So now we're gonna take our 5 grams worth of gelatin and bloom this into our very small amount of water. The reason for this is that I wanna bloom it in the water versus coconut cream, because the coconut cream we're gonna have to heat up, and you don't wanna add super hot cream straight to the gelatin because you're gonna end up scalding it and burning it. So I am using this full fat coconut cream, which is freaking delicious, and we need, oh yes, we need 300 grams. We're gonna do 100 grams worth of coconut cream per cheesecake. Okay, maybe 300 grams is too much, but we'll go with it. That is really tasty coconut cream. So now we also need, how much sugar did I say? CHEFPK.com for recipes. 60 grams worth of granulated sugar. That's all we need, just a little. You know what, I'm gonna do 50. I'm gonna do 50 grams. This looks like it's gonna be more than enough. Gandalf just farted. Now normally with a coconut cream panna cotta, because the coconut cream is so thick, you would normally add maybe some almond milk or some water to it, but I wanna see what this feels like. It is really rich and I love the way it looks just because it is super thick. Now we're just gonna heat this just until that sugar dissolves. Remember, just until the sugar dissolves, no more than that, because coconut cream can get kind of weird and start to separate if you heat it up too much. But you can also add in some almond milk or some water to help cook the sugars down instead of just the coconut cream. But we're gonna chance it. I think this is gonna be delicious. So now we're gonna treat this pretty similarly to how we did the curd. Keep it kind of slow and low. This is still a little warm. So my coconut milk has been going for just a couple of minutes, and as soon as it starts to like simmer and you see heat up, that's when you just want to pull it off. So this way it doesn't like start separating and get weird, but you can see that it just nice and steamy, didn't get to a boil. That's what you're looking for, yeah? Now the last thing I'm gonna do is I'm gonna hit this with a pinch of salt, always, pinch of salt, just a little guy in there. Then we're gonna do a small cap full of vanilla just to enhance some flavors in there, just a touch. Give this another whisk, make sure this is all good to go. Now we're gonna slowly temper some of this in here. Make sure you constantly stir this, probably add the rest of it to this. Now gelatin does need to set up. Ooh, that is tasty. So here's the issue. This has to go on top of the cheesecake. I could pour it over the cheesecake, but the layers of the cheesecake on the outside have started to separate, you know, like come off of the mold, which is fine. So the other thing I can do is simply pour this into a shallow pan or a shallow dish and then cut rings out of that and place it on top of the cheesecake, which I think is going to be the best bet. We're gonna do some of this avocado spray that we used previously just to keep it consistent. And I'm gonna spray the towel, and then I'm gonna wipe down this. We don't actually need a lot of grease because the fat from the coconut milk or coconut cream should help it demold. Pour this guy into here. I'm gonna let it sit at room temp for, let's go for like an hour. Just let it sit before we move it. This way it'll kind of cool down to room temperature before we pop it in the fridge. And this is basically our coconut layer. And I really hope that it does come together. This hasn't been made before, but I'm very excited for it. We're gonna work on the second recipe, which is a Mochi Yuzu cake with yuzu ice cream. I'm really excited to try this one out as well. So we're gonna get all of that ready and we're gonna bake the cake, make the ice creams, and then we're gonna get ready to plate up for our judges, which is actually going to be the following day because we wanted to have the judges there. So that's why this video is late. Now, the first thing we need to do for this cake is actually heat up some coconut milk, not coconut cream. And this is unsweetened coconut milk because we are adding a good amount of sugar to this recipe for this cake. We're just gonna bring this over to the heat and we're gonna heat it gently, not too much. It's just gonna be enough to further melt our coconut oil that we're gonna add to this. Now, while the coconut milk is heating up, we're gonna combine our dry ingredients. And I have 250 grams of mochi flour, which I don't have a box, but this is mochi flour, not regular all-purpose flour or anything like that. This is mochi ko that you would normally use to make mochi, which is really interesting. We also have 300 grams worth of granulated sugar. It is quite a lot of sugar. We also need just about 1 gram worth of cardamom. That's basically all you need. Cardamom can be super strong in anything that you make. We also just need a pinch of salt. Finally, just 1 teaspoon of baking powder for the rest of your dry ingredients. Pop that right in there. We're just gonna give this a quick stir. I'm just using a KitchenAid as well as my paddle mixer, so I'm just gonna use the same paddle to kind of mix this together slightly. Now for the wet ingredients, I'm gonna put them directly into our mixing bowl, and we need 2 eggs, 2 whole eggs, followed by 60 grams worth of coconut oil. For the yuzu, I'm adding 30 milliliters worth of yuzu juice directly to the wet ingredients, followed by a capful of vanilla. And then we're just gonna slightly bring this together real quick with our paddle, just to make sure some of those ingredients are broken down, like the egg and the oil. You could have just beaten the egg, which I probably should have done ahead of time, but this will be okay. Now we have to temper some of this heated coconut milk into the egg mixture, otherwise it's going to start cooking the eggs, which is what we don't want to happen. So we're gonna grab a whisk, and we're gonna start slowly incorporating the coconut into the eggs and the oil. This is also gonna help break down the oil, so it's not super chunky. A big thing with working with mochi flour is that you have to have the liquid warm to start kind of bringing that mochi together. So that's why this milk is heated. Otherwise, you wouldn't really use like heated milks for a cake. We're gonna grab our KitchenAid and bring this over here, and we're gonna start adding in our dry. Now we're gonna turn this on low, kind of a low speed, and start slowly incorporating. Let's use a spoon so we don't turn this into a disaster. Incorporate some of your dry, just so that way you're not clumping it all together. You essentially just wanna feed some of the dry ingredients directly into your wet ingredients, making sure that you see most of it broken down before you continue to add more. This is gonna make sure that all of it gets fully incorporated before you overwhelm it. And then once you get towards the end, you can just dump the rest in. It should be fine at that point. Then we're gonna grab a spatula. Don't do this while it's on. Ignore everything you're seeing. It smells delicious. Scrape the sides. Actually, I'm gonna scrape the bottom as well. Make sure that nothing is hiding out at the bottom. Okay, we're gonna let this mix until homogeneous, as Babish would say. I'm also allowing it to stir like this at a faster speed to actually cool down some of that coconut milk before we put it into our pans. Now, after 1 or 2 minutes, it really doesn't take too long for this kind of a batter to come together. We're gonna go ahead, I'm gonna show you how wet this batter looks compared to like a regular cake batter. You can see it almost looks like an icing, right? Let me show this to you guys. This is what our batter currently looks like. Super loose, super wet. It should come together relatively well. And now we're gonna cook these in some loaf pans, these guys, for the presentation. I think that's gonna look really, really cool as well. But we just need to grease them. We're gonna use some coconut oil to grease the insides and then bake them off, and that's really the end of it. The easiest way to grease the insides of your pan with coconut oil is literally just grab a chunk and just rub the inside of the pan. This is gonna make sure that it doesn't stick, especially because we're gonna garnish this. We're gonna line the inside with just a bit of sugar to give it a nice crust. Look at that greasy boy. So I have a little bit of extra coconut oil. We're just gonna let that hang out until we need it and get your hands clean. Now we are gonna, again, sprinkle the insides with just a touch of that granulated sugar. Of course, my hands have water on them still. That was a dumb move. And once you have the sugar inside, just kind of move it around a bit. This will help get some of that oil coated as well. Now we need to fill these. I don't know how much this is gonna rise, so we're going to fill these 3/4. It is a thick, thick boy now from that mochi. So we have both of our dishes ready to go. Now we're gonna top these off with some black sesame seeds or some toasted sesame seeds as well. Just gonna give these a nice hefty sprinkle. Maybe we can, yeah, you know what? Let's just go in. Let's just go in. Not too in. These have to go in the oven at 350 degrees for about 50 minutes. They take quite a while to cook, so we're gonna throw these in while we work with everything else. Godspeed, little ones. Set a timer for 50 minutes.
50 minutes, and that's starting now.
Now while the mochi cake is working in the oven, we're gonna make a layer filled with pecans and shelled peanuts. We're gonna turn this into kind of a little like nut-like spread. Into your food processor or blender, grab 100 grams worth of shelled pecans and hopefully a blade to help. That's a good thing. Pop your pecans in there, followed by 100 grams worth of roasted and dried shelled peanuts. Just using that Planters stuff, I make it sound so fancy, but it's literally Planters peanuts. This is also going to get just a small portion of cardamom. I'm using about 1/8 of a teaspoon. Followed by 20 grams worth of melted butter, slightly melted. There's a chunk in there, it's fine. And then to sweeten it, I'm using about 30 grams worth of honey. Finally, just a pinch of salt. I'm sitting over here talking smack about sugar and I still need to add about a tablespoon worth of granulated sugar, so whatever, what do I know? And then we're gonna turn this into a nice spread, hopefully. Unfortunately, the Ninja Kitchen Blender doesn't actually blend things very well. Yeah, I'm calling you out. I wish I had a Roboku. I may have to add just a touch of warm water. You can see how chunky that is. That's not gonna, what's that gonna spread on? Just add a touch hot water. That's it, you know? That's it, that's all we're doing. So this is probably as emulsified and spread-like as we're going to get with this, but it's looking like it's almost there. I think this is gonna be okay, especially when we go to actually spread this on the cake. We'll just be very gentle with it. I may add just a touch more water to try to start breaking that down, but I mean, if that's all we're gonna get out of it, that's gonna be okay. We'll be able to work with this, so we're just gonna go on. We're gonna remove it. I think this looks really nice and workable now with that addition of water. It smells delicious, just a little bit. Oh yeah, oh, it's good. Now next up on the list is making some yuzu and matcha ice cream for this mochi cake. This is super simple, we only need 4 ingredients. First up is some heavy whipping cream. We're gonna need 250 grams worth of heavy cream. Close, 240, 246, that's okay. Next is the always delicious, always fantastic, sweetened condensed milk. You can always make your own, but why? Out of the can, it's delicious. We're going to need 200 grams worth of sweetened condensed milk. This is what's going to actually be the thing that sweetens this ice cream versus using any other sugars, because there's so much sugar in condensed milk. Next, 5 milliliters worth of yuzu juice. And then finally, just about 1/4 teaspoon of matcha powder. You don't need too much matcha powder. Now we're gonna pray to the ninja gods that this thing actually blends to the frothiness that we need. We went for 45 seconds, all we needed for this, because otherwise it's gonna turn into a hot, steamy mess. Ooh, look at that, we almost made butter. Close enough. That is delicious. Almost turned into butter. Thankfully, it's not quite butter yet. So this is gonna be a no churn ice cream, which is really nice. Look at it. It's basically ice cream. Make sure it's nice and spread evenly, so this way it freezes evenly as well. Get a little parchment on there, throw a lid on it, 2 hours in the freezer, don't touch it. It's been around an hour and I went just a little longer than I initially thought on these cakes, but these are looking pretty amazing now. Like, look at how much they puff. I could have probably filled these slightly less than I did, but they're looking pretty thick, pretty freaking gorgeous. So what we're gonna do is we're actually gonna let these cool down in the pans, okay, for about 20 to 30 minutes, just so that way they can kind of slowly start cooling down like we talked about with the cheesecakes. Then from there, we do have to put those on a cooling rack, so that way they cool down completely before we decide to put any layers or any caramel or anything on them. So we do have to wait a while on this. So we're actually going to make just a few more things before the judges arrive, so that way they can have everything ready to go and feed them as soon as they're here, and there's no real in-between time. The last thing we need to make is some caramel sauce for this mochi cake. This is going to need 90 grams worth of coconut cream, not milk. And to that coconut cream, to sweeten it instead of sugar, we're using honey. We need 120 grams worth of honey. It's a pretty significant amount. It's 127, but what are you gonna do? You know, it's good honey. You don't waste the honey. Now we're gonna gently heat this over the stove, because remember, coconut cream can get weird while it cooks, so really pay attention to this. I have it to where it looks, it's really pale looking. Can you see that, right? That's kind of this pale color that you're looking for. That's just when the honey and the coconut cream are incorporated. Now, we're gonna let this slowly come up to that mark. And I'm gonna use a candy thermometer. We wanna make sure you're using one of these. Otherwise, you're gonna have a bad time. So we're gonna let that go and hope for the best. Now it's been about maybe 10 minutes or so on this, and it's really started to darken in color compared to what it was, that paler color that we had earlier. It smells amazing from that honey that we had used. There's the difference in color now. Now what we need to do is we're gonna finish this with a touch of butter. This is 20 grams of unsalted butter. We're just gonna pop in there. It's actually gonna help cool it down and give it this really, really nice finish. Now this is also going to just sit at room temperature until we need it for later today when we do the plate up. As it cools down, it will thicken up a bit. So make sure it isn't warm when you go to plate this. Otherwise it'll just be a bit too loose. Okay, once my butter is almost melted, this is when I'm gonna pop in some salt. Oh, you know what? We'll use the nice flaky salt. A little pinch of flaky salt. Just a little bit of vanilla because it is such a small amount of caramel. This is pretty much good to go. Butter is fully melted in here. It has this beautiful shine and this beautiful finish now. We're just gonna let this hang out on the stove. It just needs to come down to room temp before we actually plate it up. Now while the caramel is relaxing, we're gonna start putting together some of the cakes. These are the mochi cakes that I pulled out of the bundt pans. Now you remember how they looked when we pulled them out? They were nice and fluffy. These did deflate a bit, and that probably has a lot to do with no gluten being involved, but they're still really nice and thick. And what we're actually gonna do with these is we're going to actually trim these so that way they're nice and even all the way around. And each cake, I think we'll get 2 portions out of each cake. So we'll just cut it in half first. We're gonna try to make this and line it up as nicely as we can. Let's see what the inside looks. I'm genuinely curious. It's super dense. It's spongy. It's really cool looking. So we're gonna trim off some of the edges. So this way you reveal all the mochi that's inside. This looks really cool. You can see that now? Yeah? Look at that. That's rad. So we're gonna cut this in half. Ooh, it's soft. There we go. Beautiful. Okay, so this is gonna go like this, so I'll keep those right there. When you're trimming this too, make sure you trim it sesame side down. It'll give you a better base just because it seemed to be wider on top than it was on the bottom. We can save the scraps too. Don't throw the scraps away if you want a little snack, you know, for later. Probably not for my macros, but you know, you do you. Now before you do anything else, try to clean up any excess sesame seed you may have anywhere so it doesn't show too much on the cakes when you go to plate them up. Now that we have all of our mochi cakes ready to go, we have to fill them with that spread we had made earlier. The spread itself has like kind of thickened up a bit overnight. What I want to do is I want to make it a little more spreadable. I'm gonna hit this with just a touch of water, throw it in the microwave for like 10 or 15 seconds, stir it together so it kind of comes together just a bit more and makes it easier to spread. Ooh, the water's already hot. Look at that. When did I heat up water? I don't know if this is gonna be spreadable like the way I want it to be. So I think what I'm gonna do is we're gonna take some of this and we're gonna press it and then we're gonna cut it to about the same size as the mochi and then just lay it on top. And I think that's gonna make it a really nice layer in between rather than trying to fight it and spread it and maybe injure the cake. Place some of it on here. I'm gonna mold it. Oh, well, I guess it is kind of, it should be soft enough. So this way you have something like this, that'll do, maybe. Take your offset spatula. We're gonna lay this, oh, there we go. Beautiful. Now don't be afraid to kind of mold this in there. So this way it looks like this. See that layer? That's kind of what we're looking for, right? What I want to do is I kind of want to even it out, right? So we're going to gently press the top and press the sides in. This will actually make it a little more dense, but also make it a little cleaner. And then we're gonna have our mochi cake. Look at it, beautiful. Pop this back on your rack and then repeat the process for as many as you have. We're doing 4 today for the judges. Now with the mochi cake mostly done, we're gonna finish the garnishes for the cheesecake, get the cheesecake locked in, ready to plate, so that way you kind of treat it like a banquet service. So once they're here, it's ready to go. First thing we're gonna take a look at though, are these raspberry bombs. Look at how they set up. I'm gonna try to pop one out gently. Yes, yes. Look at it. Beautiful. But that's ultimately not what we want to do. Now we need a melon baller. Do I have a melon baller? I know I have a melon baller. It's like one of those tools that your old school chef gives you. Well, I don't think I have a melon baller. So instead, we're going to use a measuring spoon. This is 1 teaspoon measuring spoon. I'm going to very carefully scoop it out. Let me show you this. Very, very carefully. Just scoop. Can I scoop just a bit? Yes. Try to go for maximum filling. Look at it. That's what we want. Now we got our lemon curd. Let's pop this in there. This came out really nice as well. You can see how much it thickened up. We just need a small amount. Fill it, come on. Oh, that was a little too much. Beautiful. I think I have to leave these in here until we're ready to plate though. Let's see if this can come out though. Yeah, that'll still come out. This is the reason why you want to use agar for this. It's a little more stiff than gelatin is, so it holds its shape. Now let's go ahead and fill the rest of these bad boys. So these are locked and loaded, ready to go. So one more garnish we need to make for the cheesecake is take some of the crust and we're gonna toast it just so we remove some of the butter and the oils in it. Guys, we don't need to cook this too long. It's gonna start to smell kind of like popcorn, and at that point, just remove it from the heat, let it hang out in the pan. Try to break down any like bigger parts that you may have in there. Okay, I lied. I'm gonna put this into a small bowl and let it cool down there because I think it just got a little too warm. So we're gonna unmold the cheesecakes, and I wanna be very careful with these, and what we're going to do is we're gonna leave the bottoms on the cheesecake right before we serve it and then remove the bottom so that way it has less of a chance of breaking. Okay, that was a little more difficult than it needed to be, but that's pretty solid. It's kind of what I expected it to look like. Okay. It has a really nice height to it for what we wanted. There we go. I'm gonna have to pull it out like that. Normally you should be able to, can I widen this a bit more? There we go. Sweet. Now we do have to add the coconut layer as well. What I'm also thinking is we should use a smaller mold so it doesn't completely cover that cheesecake to show some negative space as well. So you'll have these rings and layers within the cheesecake. I think that'll be a nice build up to it. Okay, let's see if we can pull this out without it breaking. That's gonna be the hard part. Oh, gotta go straight over. Oh, we did it. Here, I'll show you what happened. Look at the layer. Can you? Oh God, don't fall over. Look at the layer. They're layers. They're like ogres. Onions are like ogres. Thank you very much. That's true. Just enough. Just enough. That's all you need. Cheesecakes are ready. Cakes are ready. Let's do this. The judges are ready. We're gonna plate up the mochi cake first. That's what they're gonna be trying first, followed by the cheesecake. So we're gonna get those 3 plated up first, bring those out to them. We're not gonna tell them which is which. You guys don't know which is which. You know what, let me know in the comments down below. Which one do you think belongs to who? The mochi cake is super simple to plate up because we have these ready to go. Unfortunately, I don't have 3 of the same plates. So this is what they're gonna be plated on. True story, I ended up breaking one of the plates that would have made this a trio earlier when I was washing my cutting board, so yes. Now I ended up putting the caramel in a sauce bottle just to help me kind of garnish, but I throw this in the microwave for like 5 seconds just to kind of warm it up. So after warming it, you can see how much more loose it is. That's kind of what you're looking for, right? We're going to add 2 layers of caramel to this. We're gonna do just a bit of caramel on the actual cake, and then we'll do some more caramel on the ice cream. Donde está the ice cream? Oh, I pulled it out. And here's the no churn ice cream. So the reason why you can actually make this no churn is because the amount of fat that is in this ice cream. It's super rich because of the coconut cream. So you should be able to scoop this fairly well. I mean, we could have tempered it, but this, even right now, right out of the freezer, this scoops relatively well. Oh yes, let's get a hefty boy. Pack it, make sure it's nicely packed. This is what I learned from Salt and Straw. Look at that, that's what they're getting. Oh, that looks so good. Beautiful. Okay, first dessert is ready. Oh, we still have to hit it with caramel. We'll hit it with caramel right now. Oh, that looks so nice. If your caramel starts to feel like it's a little stiff, you can always just pop it back in the microwave, but I think the consistency is really nice. Now, let's bring this out to the judges. This is the Mochi Nut Cake filled with peanuts, pecans, a bit of cardamom. The Mochi Nut Cake is mostly mochi co-flour and then a bit of coconut milk. So there's actually no gluten in the cake. Woo! Then the ice cream is a coconut cream ice cream with yuzu as well. And then the cake has yuzu in it. So this is technically the Yuzu Battle. The caramel on top is a coconut cream caramel. So it's coconut cream, honey, vanilla. Enjoy. This is dish number 1.
Okay, I just got a taste of the cream and it's so good.
Ooh, the honey is really good. Oh my gosh. This is delicious.
That ice cream is really good.
Okay, I am struggling.
I need a knife.
Yep.
Do you guys need a knife?
Yeah.
Oh, please.
Okay, knives required.
Oh!
So knives required.
Yeah, knives required. I've just, oh no.
Okay, it's coming down. We're just gonna
Add some of that to it. That's so
I have
good.
a little mouth. That's delicious though.
That cake is so smooth.
It's smooth, it's chewy, the nuttiness in there with the filling.
Oh, it's so good. There are so many flavors happening.
Mine just
I
lives
still
on
can't
its
cut
side
it very easily, even though I have a knife now, though.
now. Join me.
Wow, this is delightful.
I'm just deconstructing it because
The cake
it looked
has a
very pretty. Did not fit on my fork or in my mouth easily.
only thing about it though, it is very hard to eat.
It also might be too big. For me at least.
The ice cream and the caramel sauce thing, oh my god.
Everything melds together so well.
I'm not getting any of the yuzu though.
That, yeah.
No.
I don't taste,
I don't taste any yuzu.
yeah, I'm tasting a lot of peanut.
But it's delicious. I have no qualms.
When I tasted the ice cream or whatever, this is ice cream, right? Right off the bat, I did get some yuzu, but that was the last of it.
Yeah, the second the nuttiness hits your mouth.
Yeah, it just completely overpowered.
Don't say it, Rachel.
Once it's in your mouth, that's all you taste.
Are the nuts?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna plate up the cheesecakes next. I did end up plating one of them ahead of time for a thumbnail, so this is what it's going to look like. Look at Look at it, it's beautiful. So for the cheesecake, we're gonna take some of the crust topping that we cooked, do a small line of it right down the center. Just enough to know that it's there. And then a bit more on the other one. Then we need the cherry bombs. Wait, raspberry bombs. These are kind of temperamental, so we wanna be very careful when we're removing them. Oh, that one kind of broke. Let's see if we can get a better one. Well, I think that's as best as it's gonna get. Raspberry bomb right on top. I probably should have removed the raspberry bombs ahead of time. It's a little jank. It's a little jank. At least we got one that looks sweet. We'll finish it with just a bit of mint because there is mint in there. And then that's it. Let's take these out to the girls, see how they like them. Next dessert is a yuzu cheesecake with a coconut cream panna cotta, a cherry bomb on top with, I'm sorry, a raspberry bomb on top.
Why do you keep saying cherry bomb?
Because it sounds better than raspberry bomb. Yeah, because that song. The crust is an almond, or a salted almond vanilla crust. So there's no graham cracker or anything in that. And then there's a bit of hidden yuzu curd in the dessert.
Ooh.
Enjoy.
I would like to say both of these desserts have looked incredible visually.
Yeah. They're very pretty.
They're so pretty. Well, now that you say that.
I was thinking about that. But now they look like boobies. We like anime boobies on this channel, so enjoy.
Ooh.
I want like a little bit. I don't, should I try everything at
Separately? Like, how do you do this?
You gotta eat it in layers.
Oh, I found it.
Okay, you definitely taste the yuzu from the cheesecake, the actual cheesecake. That's for darn sure.
Ooh.
Oh, I love panna cotta.
I don't like cheesecake, and I like this. It's a texture thing.
The one thing I am missing from this cheesecake, though, is the graham cracker crust.
Yeah.
Like, it's still really good. You definitely get that yuzu
it's so
super
sour.
strong flavor, which I love.
Anybody else just eat the raspberry on its own?
Yeah, it's delicious.
It's a nice contrast, but that like hit me in the back. Does anyone else get that? Like in the back of your jaw when it's really sour?
Yeah, it's like right here.
Yep.
Ooh, that raspberry is amazing. Wait, what's the white? Is that a meringue?
The white is
Panna
a
cotta.
coconut cream panna cotta.
Oh, that is so
Ooh.
good.
That is really good. It gives it that extra creaminess.
And even with everything in it, I still taste the panna cotta. I mean, the yuzu.
The
The yuzu is definitely more present
Yeah.
in this one.
Yes.
Oh my god, I love yuzu with any kind of like sweetness to it. Oh, it's so good.
But this isn't overly sweet.
It's not sweet at all, which was like the craziest bit of it.
Oh, and inside the little.
Oh, sneaky!
I found it!
Oh, yeah. Oh my gosh, so good.
I'm a happy person.
We're happy elves. Happy elves.
Yes. This is a lot more easier to eat.
The only thing I have to say about it is just a little sour.
I told you! It hurt.
It's perfect.
I think after like my third bite, it doesn't just like, I'm really starting to only taste the sour.
Oh, see, no, I love sour. This is like perfect. Like it could be even a little bit more tart.
I have a texture thing, and this bothers me. That's the only thing.
I think this is delicious.
It tastes great. I like the crust a lot.
I think the texture is perfect.
Battle of the yuzu. Hold up a 1 for the first dish or a 2 for the second dish. 3, 2, 1. Yay! Ding, ding, ding! So number 2 was the winner, and number 2 was my dish. So thank you for competing.
Somebody please just kick his ass.
Yes.
Just thoroughly.
That's not very nice.
I'm not a very nice person, Paul.
That's true. So in the Battle of the Yuzu, the cheesecake ended up being the winner, but the other cake was still super delicious. I'd love to know which one you guys thought was the winner. Let me know in the comments down below, or which one would you order at a restaurant. If you want to support the channel directly, check out all the merch down below at chefpk.com. Pick up the books, pick up some shirts. My name is Chef PK. Get subscribed, and remember, keep playing with your food.